First thing I want to do is thank you for the invite, specifically Kwame. I appreciate you reaching out, and second thing is I'll just get started and jump in. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about critical roles. So education, workforce development in the critical materials and minerals sector. I know that was covered a little bit yesterday, but I did see it on as a word in this session description, so I kind of honed in on it. Starting at a high level, right, we look at criticality along two main axes of this matrix. There is supply risk and importance to energy. So my office, which is the Advanced Materials and Manufacturing Technologies Office in the Department of Energy, helps lead this criticality assessment. We are in the middle of the 2026 round of this assessment, and that should be published sometime in the middle of next year. These materials are critical because of their importance to energy and their risk to supply disruption, but the real foundation for those aspects of criticality come from their importance to the energy sector, but also national security and U.S. competitiveness. So in order to have a reliable grid in power generation, aerospace industry, and transportation sectors, we need these key components in which the foundational materials for those are the critical materials. So these, we create that list or that matrix, analysis for the energy sector, but it is influenced and intertwined with these other sectors. So one thing that we consider with the criticality assessment from the Department of Energy are forward-looking scenarios, right? We heard from a couple folks. Tom yesterday talked about it. We heard about it today from Aaron, that it's important for us to consider the challenges of tomorrow, especially as folks engaged in R&D. And the criticality assessment, the critical materials assessment from the Department of Energy does consider a number of forward-looking demand scenarios, which puts that assessment sort of in a different category than, say, the critical minerals assessment from USGS. And I think it's important to have distinct types of assessments. If you couldn't break apart those details, it'd be hard to develop strategy. So we use this type of forward-looking analysis to forecast where we should be focusing our priorities. What I failed to mention in the last slide is that with the increase, can I go back? Okay, cool. With the increase in demand for these materials, we are going to need a workforce to meet that demand, right? And that the reliance on imported critical minerals and materials is going to grow. And if the U.S. doesn't expand the production capacity with the help of a skilled workforce, we're not going to be able to meet that demand. So we talked about importance to energy. We talked about the increasing demand for energy, among other sectors. There's also supply risk, right? I forgot which axis on there, but the other axis to the criticality. So there are supply chain vulnerabilities. There's particular vulnerabilities that we've noted in the midstream, in the refining space, as well as the mining space. But it's important to note that in addition to the lack of production here, there's a concentrated production outside of our borders, right? And a lot of it sits with China, as we just heard. So these vulnerabilities extend to a number of materials I highlighted two here. There was lithium in the last slide, and rare earths. We see the same type of geographically concentrated activity in the supply chain, and again, a severe lack of midstream and downstream capabilities here in the United States, but more so the concentration of that section of the supply chain in China. So that underscores the issue of supply risk and that contribution to criticality. So what do we do about that? What do we do about mitigating those challenges? So the goal of the Critical Minerals and Materials Program at the Department of Energy is to get materials off that list. It's not to put materials on it, it's to get them off, right? So we do that by employing a vision and a strategy to build a reliant, resilient, secure, and globally competitive domestic critical mineral and material supply chain. And we do that, there are 4 pillars to our strategy. I have a laser pointer. Is it? It's very faint. You can see it. So there are 4 pillars: diversify and expand supply, develop alternatives, improve material and manufacturing efficiency, and reuse and recycle. What underscores these strategic pillars are our enabling activities. And the one I want to draw attention to today is education and workforce development. We would not be able to do any of these, and all the technologies that we help, or we support the development of, would not, be developed, would not be demonstrated, would not be operated without a workforce. So, circle that there so you can see it. So the big picture is that innovation and workforce are closely linked, right? That people are critical to developing and deploying technological innovation. And innovation is what's going to set us apart from the rest of the world moving forward to meet demand. So crucial technologies cannot be deployed without the necessary trained, skilled workforce. Technological innovation and workforce development, like I said, are intertwined. Addressing that gap and manufacturing competitiveness are national priorities. And you can see the statistic on the right that this is talking about manufacturing more broadly than just critical minerals, but that the number of manufacturing jobs expected to go unfilled by 2033 is almost 2 million. So before I dive in, just a high-level sort of overview of what I'm going to cover is the manufacturing sector growth is driving the need for new workers of every type, especially workers that are familiar with nascent fields, nascent technologies, and to that third point on the right, the skills that are required to work in manufacturing are quickly evolving as a result of the innovation that we're seeing to stay competitive, right? And attracting and retaining manufacturing workers remains a challenge, and that's something I heard that was presented yesterday. I wasn't there for the beginning talks, unfortunately, but I also heard a little bit today. So I'm going to hopefully briefly go over some of these guiding documents. I'll go kind of quick. I have no problem sharing this slide deck if I'm going too fast, or if you want to take pictures, that's fine, but I can share the slide deck so you can digest a little bit of what's on the slides. I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker. So there's guiding documents that we'll cover. I won't list them. I'll just cover them one at a time. So in 2019, there was a federal strategy to ensure a secure and reliable supply of critical minerals. There were 6 calls to action in this strategy. The 6th one was to grow the American critical minerals workforce. And you can see here that there were 4 goals set out in this strategy, or in this goal of the strategy, this call to action. So bolstering the education in mining, engineering, geology, and other fields related to critical minerals, mining, and manufacturing, promoting interdisciplinary collaboration. We all understand that critical minerals is a very interdisciplinary space. Implementing personnel and management reform to ensure appropriate human capital to support the exploration and development of critical minerals on federal lands. Fast forward to this administration, so this was the first Trump administration. Fast forward to this administration, we see some other activities related to that goal, and facilitating sustained interaction with critical mineral stakeholders and the general public. So from this strategy, the National Science Technology Council formed, which is run through the White House Office of Science, Technology, and Policy. A lot of words there, but there's a White House coordination mechanism called the NSTC Critical Mineral Subcommittee, and that subcommittee organizes at the staff level people from all the agencies that are involved in critical minerals to get together and talk and coordinate on our actions. And there are 6 teams aligned with these 6 strategies. I help run the Team 6 on education workforce development. So the next document I want to talk about is the 2021 DOE strategy for critical minerals and materials. And in this strategy, we have an objective to grow the American critical mineral and material workforce. Again, I won't go through everything here, but there are a number of actions that were recommended out of this strategy. They include coordinating a plan, leveraging existing programs from across the federal government, not just in DOE, sponsoring undergraduate scholarships and fellowships, apprenticeships, and engaging with stakeholders to understand short and long-term workforce needs. Which brings me to this third document, which is a report out from a workshop that I ran in 2023 on that exact topic. Key takeaways that DOE took from this, that we need strategic collaborations, partnerships among professional organizations, industry, academia, local government, for growing a workforce and informing our investments. Supporting the entire supply chain, so supporting the workforce as well as the financial incentives and investments across the supply chain simultaneously. So from mining to processing to refining to manufacturing. So covering the full supply chain so that there are no kinks and bulges as we scale. And feedback loops to update investments. So we're constantly iterating, we're constantly trying to engage with stakeholders and understand where the workforce needs are shifting and how they can be met with support from the federal government. I won't spend a lot of time here, but these are some additional takeaways from the workshop. We held panels from industry, academia, state and local and other organizations, and then identified crosscuts as well in a broader group. So we helped sort of understand what the key problems were and identify what some of the key solutions were. And I'll summarize this in a couple of slides so we don't have to spend too much time here. Every year there is a U.S. Energy Employment Report. So in the last report, there's indication that almost 8.4 million people work in the energy sector, which represented about 5.3% of American jobs. Again, this is the energy sector, not just critical minerals and materials. And that 76% of energy employers, so that the folks that fell into that category, had some difficulty hiring as the energy workforce continued to grow. So some of the takeaways from that were that there needs to be a focus on supporting the roles that produce the raw materials that go into our energy products, and to make data-informed decisions on policy and investments in that space. Most recently, and this is the one that has a couple slides to it, there's an Energy Workforce Advisory Board that the Department of Energy stood up. EWAB is what I'll call it. They are an independent board that the Department of Energy nominates people to join, nominates experts, and on July 9th, they released a special report in response to the executive order. I believe it was like a day one executive order that covered a lot of ground, but there was particular mention in there about creating employment opportunities for American workers, including drawing discouraged workers into the labor force. So they made the special report with some cross-cutting recommendations to provide significant support to scale pathways for high-paying, high-quality energy careers, emphasizing apprenticeship and other earn-to-learn models, increase awareness and excitement of and connections to energy careers for career-ready adults and students, and to position DOE as a leader for innovation, effective non-siloed solutions to support development of the workforce for the 21st century energy needs, prioritizing place-based and industry sectoral strategies. So I should be clear that these are recommendations from an independent board. These are not actions that we necessarily have to follow, but we help choose these experts, right? So we do, you know, consider their recommendations in high regard. They made a number of cross-cutting recommendations. Again, I won't spend too much time, but again, we hear some similarities: apprenticeships, community colleges, curricula development, access to that curricula, communication campaigns, educating career influencers like workforce boards, educators, and parents, career navigation, developing a K through 12, again, like a national strategy, youth awareness, scholarships. There's a lot of similarities between these documents. That's kind of where I'm headed with this. They also, I believe for the first time, made recommendations that were sector specific. At least it's the first time that critical minerals and materials were mentioned that I'm aware of. And so their recommendations include or state that the DOE needs a broad approach to increase awareness and dispel misperceptions about careers in critical minerals and materials space, and to advance American competitiveness in that space. So the recommendations are here. This is all online, by the way, so I know it's a very word-heavy slide, but quick Google search of that top header would get you there. But again, we see similar recommendations. We see regional initiatives. We see nationwide research innovation capacity, and enhancing that capacity, providing resources to colleges and universities, improving the ability to stack grants and loans in a strategic manner. So this I thought was helpful, that oftentimes I think education workforce development funding is kind of tacked on, right, to projects, and sometimes there isn't even funding associated with it. It's just, to be blunt, an afterthought. Some of the times, and a lot of times, not all the time. And so I think one thing that we're trying to do in this vein is to be more integral with the education workforce component to our funding opportunities, and to both have them integrated into our research and development investments, but also to have it designated investments in workforce development. So, like I said, there's some reoccurring themes. This is sort of a word cloud of the things that I pulled from those documents, about where to focus, what to do. There's curricula, apprenticeships, different externships, right? Early engagement on awareness and perception, and K through 12 engagement, career mapping and establishing pathways, having national strategies, again, the regional and community components. So needless to say, I think that we have a lot of sort of guidance on where to go. It's a matter of, I think, implementing, right? And these, don't need to cover this, but these different documents, as well as the stakeholder engagement that the department has pursued and participated in, have identified specific needs, challenges, and opportunities to implement, right? So some of the needs here on this are listed on the left. The demand for multidisciplinary specialized talent, integration of foundational knowledge and practical skills, comprehensive and collaborative educational frameworks, and strategic recruitment and positive industry perception. So these are needs that we're understanding from our engagement. The challenges, though, are the negative perceptions, right? The lack of awareness, skill gaps that are specific to the needs in industry, and systematic barriers and misaligned incentives. That's sort of what I was talking about with the designated funding for workforce. So opportunities that were identified, again, curriculum and program modernization, expanded experiential and learning and industry engagement, especially early engagement, proactive recruitment and positive image cultivation, tackling that perception issue, supporting the awareness, and strategic investment in collaborative frameworks. So again, this is sort of a wrap-up of those documents, as well as the engagement that was conducted in support of making those documents. So what does DOE do about it? I I don't want to say early in the administration, but in terms of activities that are being announced early in the administration. So I'd love to talk about things we're going to do. I think there's one thing that we took away from those documents is that we need sustained programming. So not saying that the programs I'm going to discuss are, continuing or how long they're continuing or whatever, but to the extent that I can discuss what DOE is doing about it, I will. So we have a number of offices that are involved in the critical minerals material space. They span from early stage R&D all the way up through applied R&D, piloting, prototyping, large-scale demonstrations, and deployment. My office sort of sits above the dark green and the purple, more so towards the dark green space. They drift over in the prototyping towards piloting. But there are a lot of these offices that engage in education workforce development. So this is a figure that tries to map it. It's not everyone can be put in a bucket. But what we also highlight here are potential gaps, right? And there are gaps, I think, like we highlighted in career awareness, university partnerships, technical training, retention efforts, and faculty support. So we acknowledge and identify these gaps and want to build a strategy that fills them in and continues to leverage the pieces that are already there and to sustain that, that activity. So I'll talk about a couple of them really quick. So the Critical Minerals Leadership Academy just kicked off, this week, early last week. And that's run through the Fossil Energy Carbon Management Office to get graduates and early career professionals out in the field, exposed to relevant coursework, and is run by the University of Wyoming. This is the first time they've done this, and I just wanted to highlight it. But those types of short courses and I don't think there's a certification associated with it, but sort of augmented educational opportunities are really important. We've supported the Critical Materials Innovation Hub, which has been running short courses for several years now. They do a lot of educational workforce development activities. So this particular program is run out of my office, the Advanced Materials and Manufacturing Technologies office in EERE. But they have a CMI Leadership Academy designed to develop leadership and management skills for emerging leaders in the CMI community. They host an annual winter meeting that is designed for early career professionals, graduate students, and postdocs to share their research and hone their communication skills. And they host internships and externships as well through the national labs. And they also do a number of outreach activities, including K through 12 toolkits that get out there in teachers' hands and are able to distribute them to students and expose them to critical minerals and materials concepts at a young age. Like I said, they host short courses, webinars. And they also have an exhibit at the Colorado School of Mines Geology Museum. And just a quick sidebar on museums. I really like this figure, especially the one on the right. This was a study that showed influences on bachelor decisions to pursue physics. And of the different influences, including hobbies and Instagram and parents and literature, even high school physics, the number one influencer was informal exposure, right? Museums and discrepant events exposure that way. So I think it's really important that we support things like that. It has a strong influence on their perception of a particular topic, and I think could make a big difference in the critical minerals and materials space. Back to the DOE program. So there's the ITAX program, which is run through the Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chain Office, which trains participants for in-demand manufacturing jobs and is very broadly distributed across the country and maximizes our investment by lowering manufacturing energy costs, so it supports the manufacturers, as well as serving as an education and workforce development pipeline. University Training Research Program out of FECM, Fossil Energy Carbon Management Office, has funded a number of research projects at the undergraduate level that have a strong emphasis on training, the students for not just the research that they're doing, but the communication skills that are important for entering the professional world, practicing, interviews, and building necessary skills that augment their technical training that they're getting through the research projects. So that's been going on since 2017, and I wanted to highlight that. One more thing that I want to highlight, and it's taking a step back first, is that we do expect growth in innovation across the supply chain, right? I mentioned that earlier. There are a lot of roles that support each of these stages of the supply chain, and it can be overwhelming for someone who's trying to understand where they fit in. And so one project that I'm supporting is developing a career map. So this is just a list of some of the projects, but I think it's important to understand how those roles contribute to the supply chain. I think it was Aaron who talked earlier about, he showed that plot from the UN, right? That big picture, starting with the big picture. And I think understanding where you fit into the supply chain without understanding how that contributes to the big picture is kind of difficult. So this career map effort, and this is just a preview, it's not, it's a beta version, it's not final, but we're working with a company called Julius and NREL to develop this career map for critical minerals and materials. You can see it's mapped left to right across the supply chain with recycling, obviously looping back in, but it shows entry, mid, and senior level positions, and you can explore this map to understand pathways, understand details about each of those roles, where the steps are, after you spend some amount of time in that role, or even how to get there by mapping it out. So you can map a whole career if you want, from entry to senior. It shows how there's roles that are connected across the supply chain. And so this is something I'm pretty excited about. I remember before I joined the Department of Energy, I was looking at some of the career maps they had, and they acted or behaved similar to this, and I thought it was helpful. So myself and my colleague Nebia have been leading this effort, but I just wanted to share that, and I think we've all heard many times today that perception awareness has been an issue. The last thing I wanted to plug, and I heard Tom mention this yesterday, is that there is an effort called the Critical Material Collaborative that aims to tie together a lot of the coordination and planning and strategy across both the set of offices that I showed in that sort of step slide, but also the interagency as well. So working with folks like NSF, USGS, Department of Defense, USDA, to sort of serve as like a connective tissue for us to collaborate. That's the end of my talk. I want to plug a workshop on Monday. If you want to, it's virtual, so if you want to register, you can use that QR code, or you can just Google it. So thanks for the time, and happy to take a question if there's anything like that.